You might assume that there's a lot of people out there that want to be rich. But what you need to understand is, why do people actually want to get rich? So what happens to that person in the process of becoming rich, or if they're existing rich? So the word rich or wealth, it actually means different things to different people, right? So one person can view wealth as something that they can buy everything that they have ever wanted, but they couldn't actually afford. Another person may view being rich as the ability to be able to quit their job and, be able to support their family. There's different types of rich out there. And the question is, what type of rich would you be interested in becoming? So there is the poor rich, and these type of people actually want to be rich because they think in their minds that money is going to solve all of their life's problems. They actually want to be able to buy all those things that they've always wanted and they might have never afforded them. The thing is that the poor rich, it's not determined by the person's financial status before they became rich, but rather how they treat the money after they become rich. Unfortunately and sadly, a lot of poor rich people, they don't know how to handle money. And most likely, it can blow their good fortune before they know it. Because all the poor people usually do is that they go on to buy fancy villas. They want to get all the, those beautiful cars and the Bentleys, and they can even be getting gadgets and anything you can think of. So the poor rich people usually will buy items just because they are status symbols and not because they really want them. So it might be fun to be a poor rich person for a little while, but once that money runs out, they're gonna go back to where they started with almost nothing onto their name. And this can actually lead them to an even unhappier life than if they were never rich at all. Now, we have another type of rich, which is usually in contrast to the poor rich person, and that is a person that is financially independent. So this type of person has a detailed plan on what to do with their money. These type of people usually enjoy the idea of being rich, and they're quite balanced, right? And they're not going to be spending their money left and right because they want to be sure that they're going to still have money in the long term. So usually these type of people are going to be strict when it comes to investing in all of these things, and they're not going to be withdrawing so much money in order to ensure that they're going to have money for the rest of their lives. And usually these types of people value the freedom that the investments can afford them. While these type of people can work to earn money, they are no longer forced to earn money in ways that conflict with their life goals because they never need to earn more money. And of course, this assumes that the ways of making money is sound and future returns are in line with the long-term averages of their investments. And then we have another type of rich person, and this is the slacker type of rich person. So usually this is a financially independent rich person. They have a purpose in their life by just wanting to lay around and to enjoy life without worrying about being productive, right? They have a plan to make sure that they hopefully won't run out of money, because the main focus of this type of person is the fact that they would rather relax at home or, go play some games a couple of times a week. They'd rather have fun than actually work at all. And there's nothing wrong with being this type of slacker rich person. if that's what one wants in life. But you need to understand this type of person won't do much to enrich their worlds beyond what affects them personally. And then we have the other type of rich, and I call him the guy that likes to travel rich. Because usually these types of people, their plan is to want to see the world. So they can be people that are slowly moving from country to country, and they can spend months in each location. Or they could be a jet-setting traveler that explores the world 1 week at a time, and then they go back home to their home base to recharge. And either way, the travel-rich person finds a way to make their money last so they can continue to explore and living the lifestyle that they love to travel, right? And a lot of these people can sometimes also set their home base in a much more affordable foreign country that can allow their money to stretch even further than it would be in their home country. And then we have the other guy, which is the entrepreneurial rich guy. So this type of person actually wants to change the world through their business ideas. They actually love the process of building a business or a product from nothing. So the money that they have accumulated in the past can easily disappear just by them making one bad business deal, or it could multiply many times over with each new successful business. So usually for entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial rich people, money is not their object, but rather it's a method of keeping score. So these types of people want to be the best, and that often means they grow businesses simply to continue to gain wealth or some other metric of business growth. There's others, entrepreneurs, that just want to make the world a better place, and they could not care less about the money their ventures earn them. And then we have the other type of rich person, which is the more giving, the giving rich. And this giving rich person is actually there, and they want to solve everyone's problems with money. But sadly, in this scenario, there is never enough money to solve the world's problems, right? So these type of people often pay off their friends' car loans or their mortgages. They can be donating their money to every charity that asks. They truly have an inner desire to help the world, but what they fail to realize is sometimes the best way to help is to be able to put a boundary and say no. So you see what happens with these types of rich people. The charities and perhaps even their circle of friends will grow dependent on them, on the giving that they're giving. And when the rich person runs out of money, these people are gonna abandon them. And realistically, if the giving rich person had more modest, if they would have been more modest with their gifts, they could have continued giving gifts for their entire life. However, most of them, they get so caught up in giving that they give until their money runs out. And unfortunately, no one will be left to help the giving rich once they are penniless in most cases. And of course, this is not always the case, but I'm just trying to give you an example. Then we have another type of rich person. So this is the hoarding rich person, and they usually only have one goal when it comes to their money. They want to keep their money, and they want to continue to accumulate more of it. So they don't like to see their bank and their investment account declining. So this would be a type of person that might have 5 to 10 million in the bank, but they might not spend more than 50K a year because they'd rather have the millions the next year than actually spend 200,000 and only have less money in there. So this type of person can be extremely frugal, or they might even present themselves to be even cheap in order for them to have an abundance of money to live the rest of their lives with. So usually these types of people can have irrational fears about the economy ending, or they might just be people who worry about a future medical event or an accident or something were to go wrong and them to lose their money. So these can be people that might be savers of money, right? And they don't spend a lot. And they rather focus on the bigger picture of items that could produce even more wealth, right? And usually people like that end up dying with a lot of wealth in the bank, and they might even, owe taxes, and they can pass on their money to their heirs, which will likely blow the money faster than the hoarding rich avoid spending. So if you were to ask yourself, what type of rich person would you want to be? When people are thinking about getting rich, you need to understand that you need to know what you're going to be doing with the money. See, there's a lot of judgments going out there for rich people. So somebody might see somebody that is dressed up with their brands and they would say, oh my God, they're so rich. But that is usually an assumption that people make, right? The total population of rich people in the world is quite low. And usually, extremely rich people are not people that really show off. That's usually how it goes. The really extremely wealthy person, you're not going to understand that they're rich. A psychological research study that actually described what types of personality types, right, that show how the wealthy really are different to everybody else. And what we found here in this study, right, is that rich people usually have 5 core personality traits. And I'll start with them. Number 1 is conscientious. So this describes people who are thorough, meticulous, diligent, efficient, well-organized, punctual, ambitious, and persevering. Second, neuroticism. So these are individuals with a high degree of neuroticism. They tend to be nervous and frequently worry about everything and anything that could possibly go wrong. They tend to react impulsively and overall are not particularly psychologically stable. Number 3, agreeableness. So individuals with high levels of agreeableness have a pronounced desire for harmony, and they have a tendency to back down quickly and are frequently too trusting. Number 4, extraversion. Individuals with high extraversion are talkative, determined, enterprising, energetic, and courageous. And lastly, number 5, they have an openness to experience. So individuals with high openness to experience are imaginative, creative, and curious. So when you compare the personality traits of the general population with those of the researchers' the wealthy people, the following patterns emerged. It showed that the rich are emotionally more stable and therefore less neurotic. The rich are especially extroverted. The rich are more open to new experiences. The rich are less agreeable, which means they're less likely to shy away from conflicts. And the rich are more conscientious. And in addition, what they found, they also investigated another 2 personality traits. And those personality traits were narcissism and internal locus of control. And in their findings, they found that the rich are more narcissistic, and the rich exhibit a stronger internal locus of control. So what this means is that they're more likely to agree with statements such as, I determine how my life turns out, than they are with statements like, what you achieve in life is mainly a question of luck or fate. So what makes the super rich tick? What we come to see and conclude is that the rich are psychologically very stable, so they're not very neurotic, and it showed that they are particularly open to new experiences, more extroverted, more conscientious, but not necessarily agreeable. There was another study, and this was an international survey. It was in the journal of BMC. They surveyed a bunch of people there. They wanted to see what happens and why do people want to become rich. And they usually said that, as the wealth divides gets wider, those less fortunate want what the rich have. In this modern society, we get conditioned from an early age to want things that we don't actually need. Our entire industry has been built around manipulating people into buying products that people believe are going to make them more attractive, more happier, and more respected. As people get older, the manipulation can actually become more damaging. So the life choices that are made in order to fulfill the implanted image of what we think we should be, people can work unfulfilling jobs to pay the products they think they must own, or worse, go into debt and spend a lifetime paying it off. And this cycle is actually quite vicious. And as these things come to play, a lot of psychologists are saying that this desire for people to become rich is actually seen by a lot of psychologists as a form of mental illness. The desire to be obscenely wealthy is actually a sickness caused by advertising and spiraling wealth inequality. And it's been spreading around the Western world like a virus. And even if you do happen to be wealthy, it turns out that it isn't actually all that great either. What we get to see is that the effects of rampant materialism are, according to research, pretty damaging to the human psyche. There was an international survey of over 90,000 of people that were published in the Journal of BMC Medicine, and it actually found a direct correlation between wealth and depression. So what we got to see is that the wealthier countries recorded higher levels of mental illness, while citizens in poorer countries were happier and better adjusted. Despite being told that being rich should make you happy, it in fact does the opposite. In Britain, mental illness levels has been soaring for years in direct tandem with economic growth. And a report by the Nuffield Foundation found that rises in mental health problems seem to be associated with improvements in economic conditions. And it seems that the richer we are, the sadder we become. And it's no wonder that so many people resort to antidepressant drugs to get them through their lives. I personally cannot count the number of people I grew up with who had everything handed onto them on a plate, yet they were incapable of leading normal, happy lives. Some of them actually turned out to be okay, but most now work jobs they hate in order to buy things they don't need, in order to impress people they don't really even like. Fighting the system is next to impossible. There are too many entrenched interests to make any sort of meaningful difference, because our society is geared towards making us feel isolated, fearful, and extremely greedy. And what do you think that solution is? Well, in my opinion, don't fight it. Just ignore it. Turn off the television. Talk to your friends, to your neighbors. Join a club. Do something that you enjoy. Interact with other human beings that you relate with. And it's much more rewarding than actually buying a mansion or a yacht.